an unbelievable, unfathomable Duke collapse. Russillo, one of the all-timers, something that brought me back to where we were in college sports in like the 80s when shit like that seemed to happen way more often. Just watching, when did you start wondering, oh my God, are they going to blow this? Because for me, it was when they got the steal. It was the 77-76 was the first time I was like, oh my God, they might actually lose this.
I still can't believe they lost it the next day. Then I'm sitting here. I know you and I both bet it, and I don't bet a ton of games, but when I saw the line come out and I had watched, look, I'm certainly far from an expert on college basketball, but I just thought based on the size advantage that Duke had and 3 lottery picks, like, okay, 4 isn't that bad of a number. And the whole game, I'm like, you should have bet more. You should have bet more. Like, you were so right about this, and anybody that, gambles enough, you just have games where you go, wow, I saw this the worst possible way. And immediately, you're fucked. And on this one, I sat there the whole time being like, I'm so smart. I'm so smart. I would say there was 2 moments that hinted at what was going to happen. That barrage of threes at the end of the first half kept Houston in it. So they feel good. Despite being outplayed in the first 20 minutes, they went at halftime feeling good about themselves. Not that this team necessarily needed the confidence boost, but being the Dogs, but they're a super aggressive team with a lot of confidence. And then really, I think Cryer and those guys, like the 2 guards just hitting threes, you're like, how is this game not 20? How is it not 25 points? And then I think once you saw that Ryen James just he was not comfortable inbounding the ball, and they kept going to this same flashing thing to the corner where they were running the inbounds catch to the corner.
Yeah, which you're taught in like 7th grade not to do that.
Yeah,
don't get trapped in the corner is the number one thing for the inbounds pass. And then number 2 is just don't throw it up for grabs under your own basket. And they somehow did both.
Yeah, I guess I was shocked. And some people even said, like, after James hit his head, but it was very clear he was freaking out trying to inbounds it.
Yeah.
And Shire was just fine with it, I guess. And
I know.
Then, then it actually happens, and then you have the foul on Cooper. But look, this team was up. They gave up a 9-0 run with 35 seconds. They didn't hit a field goal for like the last, 10? So
they had a drought
terrible.
that felt like a half hour with all the challenges and all the reviews and all the other things. I mean, first of all, there was a play in this game. I'll be interested to see if you've seen it, because I can't remember ever seeing somebody try to strip the inbounds passer before and getting it technical. I feel like that might have made history for me. It probably happened at some point in my life, but I don't remember. But that happens, and I thought, oh, that's got to be 2 techs in the ball. It was only 1 tech. So they go up 6, but they have the ball. And then from that moment on, the game just completely fell apart for them. And there was bad defensive stuff. Like Flagg got beat for a layup. They gave up that 3 when they were up 6. When all they did was basically just, a lazy high screen, and both guys jumped on the one guy, and all of a sudden somebody else was wide open. They gave up the inbounds pass steal, wide open 3. Guy comes flying in from the weak side and dunks it. And then, the guards on Duke were terrible. And I really think, like, if you're going big picture, the fact that you're trying to win a title, but you don't really have that one, I got it, guys, guard. It really seems like that blows up in games like that. You're playing a big football stadium. There's a crazy pressure. And then your sphincters start to get a little tight, and you kind of need that one guy who's like, I got this. And they didn't have anybody.
No, the guards killed them. And it's 1 field goal, that Cooper 3 with the last 10 and a half minutes. So like, that's really the headline. Like, we can talk about a call or inbounding. It's like, how does Duke go 10 and a half minutes with only 1 made field goal throughout of it? I think there's also like different discussions. They don't double Cooper on the last play. If he hits that shot, does everybody go, hey, Houston, how do you play that straight up when you know that the ball's going to him? That didn't hurt him. There was also the debate of after the technical free throw by Knipple, Houston played it straight up. And my thing is always at home, it's kids, although, some of the guys are a little bit older now. But I would foul. I would delay the game out as much as possible because I would expect the younger guys to just miss free throws. And Houston plays it straight up, which I think, we could debate it. And granted, people will just play the result and say, hey, it's smart now. But in that moment, maybe Sampson's going, hey, these guys have been tight for a half an hour.
Right.
So let's not foul them. Let's let them run the clock out. They're going to run it down. They're not going to get a great look. And if we play them straight up, at this point, like, maybe it's better than, because they would have been down 6. If they foul, who knows, he makes it 2, then it's probably over. But to decide to play them straight up, which goes against everything I'm saying, but maybe even in the moment, it's like why some of these coaching philosophies don't apply to every single game because things are playing out differently. Houston, look, in the Tennessee game, most teams, I think, would have blown that lead to Tennessee because Tennessee was one of these teams when you watch that first half against Kentucky where you go, oh my God, like this is overwhelming. The energy, the effort, how hard these guys play. And Houston's the same thing. And Houston's like, fine, you guys want to do this with us? We'll do it. So I don't want to, like, look, my least favorite thing ever is when the topic in the pre-show meeting is, did Duke blow it or did Houston win it? And it's just stupid. It's TV shows do it all the time. Duke clearly blew this, but it's also ignoring the fact that this is who Houston is. This is a team that was down 6 with 10 seconds to go against Kansas and forces a double overtime game. So they believe it all the time. And so I want to credit them for that, but I still cannot believe that a team like Duke that's this good, that this talented, couldn't figure out the inbounding thing because James was rattled those last 4 or 5.
Houston, relentless, made a couple big shots, made a couple big defensive plays, like blocking Knipple when they were down 6 on that layup was, Duke had the opposite play on the other end and they fouled the guy. I was thinking about the big picture thing for me, obviously Flagg. Nobody's going to remember this game in 5 years. Nobody's going to hold it against him. No, I mean, for the Flagg NBA arc, when he's like playing on Charlotte or whatever, age 24, he's in the playoffs. Nobody's going to be like, hey, remember that time in the semifinals?
Honestly,
I think it's going to hang on him?
I think the people are going to ask him about this game for the rest of his life. Like, I don't know.
Really?
Him. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is awful, man. This is all time. Like, I know what you're saying. Like, oh, remember in the tournament, whatever. I think this was so big on this stage for a Duke team that so many people dislike, but yet here he is, and I'm watching him in this game going, I don't know where the flaw is. Where's the flaw?
Right.
Like, the more you watched him, and I know
then
we're
he
late
sucked
to
in
this,
the last 2 minutes.
Did he suck?
Well, he gave up a couple big defensive plays, gave up a big rebound. He had the foul that over the back, which was, I thought, one of the worst foul calls in a while. But what I was going to say was,
I pushed back on that he sucked. In the last
he sucked in the last 2 minutes. He did.
Sucked in the last 2 minutes.
They gave up like an absolute slaughter of a run, and he was a big part of it. Defensively, he was in multiple plays where his guy either beat him to the basket or he gave up a wide open 3 on that switch. That was his fault. We're 7-7-71, 100% his fault on that. Gave up the weak side rebound. I'm just saying, it wasn't like he's not sending that 2 minutes to the Hall of Fame committee and be like, here's my case. It was bad. But the whole team was bad.
If you were scouting him, you would be in the room going
I'm all
like,
in on Flagg. I thought he was the best guy in that team by far.
Well,
but what I was going to say is that last shot, it's so funny how that fork in the road moment of like, he gets the shot he wants. I thought it was going to go in and he front rimmed it. But if it goes in, now it's like this completely different conversation, right? They survived the scare and he has like his Larry Bird, Carmelo moment, and oh my God, and he finishes with 29 points and he's headed for a thing. And instead you're looking back like, that was really rough. I thought he got tight. I thought the whole team got super tight. Proctor looked like he didn't want to dribble anymore by the end of the game. But that's the thing. These guys Flagg's 18. These guys are all kids. That's what always makes me nervous when I watch college sports. I feel so bad that these guys are so young at the stage they're at. With just this kind of spotlight and tension and pressure. I don't think I think you're wrong though. I don't think it's going to hang on Flagg in the same way. I thought he was really good for almost the entirety of the game.
Are we saying two different things though? Because I don't know that you're going to be having Kevin Harlan on a Thursday night TNT broadcast 4 nights from now going, well, 30 from Cooper, but they blew
if we're
that
doing
game
the
to Houston.
scale, the C-Web timeout game was clearly like, we'll be remembering this, right? When he called the timeout that they didn't have at the end of that thing, that was like, oh shit, this one's going to follow him. I also think college basketball meant more when that happened.
It did.
But in this case, I don't know. I thought his team really stunk. And I watched Duke a bunch of times this year. That stretch in the second half I thought was by far the worst I've seen them. It's kind of inexplicable that they couldn't score for that long. I didn't really understand anything they were doing either.
No, I guess I'm still shocked that you thought he sucked the last 2 minutes. I'm going to have to go back and watch the tape again.
You have to watch it.
I think giving up a rebound or getting caught in rotation and somebody hitting a 3, like that's basketball. I
Well,
don't
how
know
about
that
this?
it means.
What did he do good in the last 2 minutes? Because I watched it a couple times today, and I was like,
You watched it a couple times?
I did. There was a YouTube clip, and I watched the last 2 minutes a couple times because I was so fascinated by it. When you have these things that fall apart, it's almost like Game 6, 86, where you're watching each pitch, and you're like, oh, that could have ended the game. That could have ended the game. And that Duke thing was the same thing.
Right,
there was 10 plays in 90 seconds where you're like, if they get that one, they win. Get the rebound, they win. I don't know.
I guess, look, I think they ran down the clock too long on the Knipple miss. I think that Proctor missed the free throw. I think Sion couldn't inbound the basketball, and then he turned it over. I think the three that made it, the sharp three that made it 67-64, that's a free-for-all. And, it's kind of like, wait a minute, the sharp three, I think maybe I'm thinking about the other three. There's another three in here off the tip where it's a complete free-for-all, and I don't even know how, anybody, it's kind of like one of those offensive rebound threes where you're just everybody's so scattered the whole time. I was surprised. Did Rick Bucher try to argue that Flagg was fouled on the rebound? I couldn't. He was kind of saying we don't know what his. I think he went with a mystery third arm defense, classic Rick Bucher. But
I didn't see the Rick Bucher.
You could see his hand, and I didn't want to how it is when you're tweeting out stuff and you go, well, did you not factor in Sri Lanka's GDP in the tariff? Then you're like, okay. Look, they screwed up so many different times. It's not about that call, but I can't believe an official in that moment is like, I think I'm kind of ready to call something on this box out. I think I'm ready. What was
weird was the way Houston was pressing on those inbounds passes and how physical they were. You could have called a bunch of stuff that way either, and they weren't. And then Flagg's getting boxed out going backwards. And I thought the guy took his right arm and kind of hooked Flagg from behind a little bit from at least one of the angles. Either way, it's just not a foul. Now, Houston got the ball anyway, but the issue for me is make them have to make a shot to win the game. Don't bail them out with some chintzy call that the guy was it seemed like he was just dying to call. He was calling it as they were still as Flagg was tipping the ball. I didn't get it. At that time in the game, I thought it was pretty inexcusable. So, from a Flagg standpoint, you don't think there's any way he goes back, right? Because that's another narrative. I don't see why he would. He's 18. Start the clock. Start the clock on your max extension. I don't know why would you wait another year to do it.
Yeah, that's what's always left out when it's look at the rookie scale stuff for the NBA guys and look at what you could make and who knows with the NIL stuff. But I always think the NIL stuff, although lucrative, can be really misleading. Contracts that just get announced, a lot of NFL stuff. It's Russell Wilson, $21.5 million, or 10, So I think the NIL stuff.
Stephon Diggs, $69 million for 3.
Yeah, right. That's a really good one.
It's really 20 for 1 plus some bonuses.
It's exactly your point. The agent, the family, everybody else is start the clock for the rookie max extension.
In 4 years, he can sign a max when he's 22 years old. I don't know why you would delay that. Right. For any reason. He's also ready to play in the league. It's not like one of those situations where, and watching him a lot, it's been interesting. ESPN ran a comps thing about him, and I'm not positive there's a specific comp. There's pieces of different guys. There's some stuff he does that reminds me of Tatum, even though they're completely different players, but body size, the fact that he can impact the game, the Tatum version now in all these different ways. But then there's pieces of other dudes. I just think if I were him, I'm coming in. There's a weird scenario, though, where he could potentially wait to see who gets the pick, right? Can he pull out by the lottery happens mid-May and I think he can pull out the end of May, something like that. So
they had changed the time. It used to be this thing where the NBA withdrawal date was so much later than the NCAA one.
Yeah.
And it was done on purpose because the coaches would just vote on it and say, we want to know ahead of time. And then I think they changed it where either it's the same date or it aligns. I think the unknown part of it, if it were a franchise where you go, absolutely not. I want nothing to do with this. Maybe, but you have new ownership in Charlotte. You have Winger running things with the Wizards. So there's at least things that you feel hey, the guy's making these decisions. It's different than what it was before. So even though these teams aren't exactly, so if you hated one of those scenarios that much, would you actually delay it for NIL money that still would probably be close to what your rookie scale would be as a first. Again, I don't know. But
also, he might not be the number one pick next year because there's a couple dudes in next year's draft that everybody loves. You know you're the number one pick now. Yeah, so Cerruti says the lottery is May 15th. He'd have a month to look at it. We have not had a scenario where somebody tried to power play the top pick or one of the top picks in a while. Like Danny Ferry famously did it when I was in college because he didn't want to go to the Clippers, ended up shoving his way to the Cavs. Steve Francis basically did it. He got drafted, was unhappy about it, had one of the funniest NBA draft reactions probably ever, where he's just seemed like he was being tortured, that he went to Vancouver, put the hat on, just kept looking up, and then finally pushed the trade to Houston. It really hasn't happened since then. And I actually wonder why it doesn't happen more often because we've been in this player empowerment era for 15 years now, but we haven't had a rookie come in and say, nah, I actually don't want to go to Charlotte. So you can either trade the pick to somebody I want to go to, or I'm just going to go back to Duke. And I think he has real leverage now with the NIL to at least pretend he might want to do that. The problem for that theory is I don't think there's like a truly horrible team to go to this year in the NBA. Do you? Like even Charlotte, like, is that a bad situation? Like they have a new front office, new owner. Everybody likes Charles Lee. They have some assets. Like that's not a disaster. Washington's not a disaster. I don't see a team where I'd be like, oh man, I feel so bad for him. He went there.
No, I mean, I was looking at it this morning where I was like, which team, if we were just being honest, be like, they don't deserve him. Like how you used to get mad when Cleveland, you just said Philly?
Philly
is the answer. It's the only answer.
They don't deserve him.
Yeah.
You're stumbling into it.
I'm not even
going to
say
bad
sorry.
Organizational stuff. Yeah, don't say sorry. They played the season wrong and would somehow get compensated with that. Would be nuts.
Yeah, because you did a Cleveland rant. I think, what was it, the third time they had won the lottery and you were on TV
on
for
TV.
The draft?
Yeah, the Cleveland fans got mad at me. That was absurd.
But I got your point.
It's like, come on. 3 times in 5 years, the same team's going to win the number one pick. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Philly, I think if you're talking about what would be the most interesting basketball situation for him, the Philly one would be, at least on paper, the most interesting. I don't know if it would be the best for him because now he's on the Embiid. Are you playing or you're not playing clock? He's on the Paul George, whatever the hell's going on there. But at least he'd have good guards. But I think Washington would be the most fun for him just as a basketball fan, just because of the weird pieces they have. And I think he would fit in with the guys they have and, be some sort of connector.
The most positive thing that you can say about him is that he's actually not going to need the ball to impact games immediately. Yeah. So whenever you think about a draft pick that could be the face of your franchise, I mean, because if we're talking like best case scenarios and him being this prospect that we've all been hearing about, and even though there was a chance, I think there was conversation at the beginning of the year of like, could the Rutgers guys surpass him? And then the year plays out and you're just like, okay, well, there's obviously everybody's on the same page now. There's no question that he's the number one guy, but your Tatum thing, at least now, I think actually rings true because you're like, hey, Tatum's playing point guard for this team. And Flagg initiates so much of their offense.
Yeah.
But he also, one of the things I loved about Paolo is that Paolo could have taken every shot and been justified when Duke was in those tight games, but Paolo still wanted to set up other people. He had what I think is like star quality shot making stuff, but yet a deferential thing that actually works well with other talented players where I think young guys have to get to a point where like, hey, you just can't, like, cool scoring, bro, but you can't just do all of this on yourself and ignore everything else that's going around you. Cooper cannot take shots and impact the game. His passing is insane. His instincts are great. His footwork, all the athleticism, the body control, and the shooting ended up being even better, I think, than people thought this year. So he's really like a plug-and-play guy. I guess the only knock would be almost like the Wembanyama thing where you go, okay, in 5 years is Wembanyama like figuring out a way to score on his own in the Western Conference Finals. And I think clearly, that's like being really hard on Wembanyama. And I think with Cooper, because if you're going to be one of these, there's not 10 guys in the league that probably fit this standard. I don't know how many you think there are, but okay, we have a real dude. We're actually like in this, not, hey, every year we have a chance to win a title, but we're at least like, we look like a conference finals team because that's the hope when you get one of these guys. And is he somebody that can score in all of those busted up possessions? And that would be maybe the only thing where you go ceiling wise, like he projects to maybe do that, but that's what will make the difference.
Yeah, there's some tough advanced metrics with him with like the perimeter shots, like that 15 to 20 feet range. You saw it last night. He missed it. But the thing is, he's 18. He's a year younger than he probably should be. I'm just like, if you're just looking, go back and look at Tatum tape when he was at Duke or first year Celtics. Like he had a couple things he could do. And other than that, he was like, a baby deer in the woods trying to figure everything out. And Flagg is where, in what I see from an all-around game, is closer to the Tatum now than that Tatum in 2018. But I don't really know if he has a comp. I don't think he's the same kind of natural scorer, but there's so many other awesome things he does. I can't wait to see him in the league. And the bummer for him is just from a big picture standpoint, he had a chance to have this start to finish college season that just would have been mentioned with Davis in 2012 and Carmelo and some of the great seasons. And now that's pulled away. I don't think this loss sticks to him though. It really felt like a team collapse to me. Yeah, that shot, they'll replay it, but big picture, like this, here's a first take segment for you. Is it better to lose or win a game like this if you're trying to become a great NBA player someday? Do you need the agony, the thing to go back to during the summer, the pain of that one loss and be like, I never want to have that feeling again? In some ways, you could argue that's actually probably better. Bird always said like getting his ass kicked by Magic in the final game was actually a really good thing for him. It gave him like a whole other level of drive. So I don't know. There's a dumb silver lining. Could it have been too easy if they won right away?
Are you saying MJ and Magic, could they have been better had they lost their title games?
If MJ had missed that shot, maybe he wins 8 titles. Maybe he never plays baseball again.
We're saying two different things, though. We're saying two different things on the Cooper, how this sticks to him. I'm looking at it as he's going to be at the gas station in Maine when he's 60, and some guy's going to come up to him and say, I can't believe you lost that game, as if he hasn't heard it his entire life. When I was watching him, and like, I don't know if I was reading lips correctly, but when Shire had him in the timeout and they were getting ready to inbound, I think he said something like, it's your time, right? Like, go make it happen.
Yeah.
And how different. Now, granted, they still have to beat Florida, which is, a really good college basketball team. So maybe we're assuming a lot. But he's going to be reminded of this probably every day in some fashion for the rest of his life. And it's going to be brutal. And you're right. I think the thing that we're separate on is that it's not going to stick to him as if it's a knock on who he is as a player. And he's, he has this great NBA career. None of this is really going to matter. Plenty of guys have lost. They've lost. But this was just such a dramatic loss to blow it this way and to have so many.
When was the last time we had a college basketball loss like this? This was like old school.
Is this the Memphis, Kansas one when they don't make their free throws?
Yeah, that's a good one. That was 2008, right? That was like 17 years ago. Just doesn't happen the same way. Wait, one more thing on the NCAA. You talked about the Florida guy last week and how much you liked him.
Yeah.
And then you watch him last night and he just looks like he's doing a Jamal Murray impersonation. And I guess now he's crept into the first round. And I don't really know the knocks. He's not as tall as Murray is. And he's older. He's 22, which they always seem to penalize guys with. But he's been impressive enough that I'm now rooting to see him go to a decent team in the draft. Maybe a team where he could play. I'm talking about Clayton. But I've just been really, really, really blown away by his shot making and how he seems to have a sense for when his team needs him to do something, right? If he's on Duke last night, Duke doesn't lose the game. So where do you see him? I know you only started doing the draft stuff, but where do you see him in that whole context? Does this even matter when these teams are looking at this in June?
Older, not jump off the screen at your athleticism. So I think that's where I look back at some of the mocks, and there was one in the beginning of this month where he wasn't even a second round pick.
Right.
And that's where, again, late to this, but the Tennessee SEC tournament game, I was like, holy shit, and then he's basically been that the entire time. We talked about the Texas Tech shot. But what he can do I'm not comparing him to Steph, okay? But what makes Steph a great shooter is that Steph can have a bad foundation, that Steph can change the release of it, even though it all kind of comes back. You know, it's almost like the Dirk thing. If you looked at Dirk's foundation, you would never say, hey, do what that guy's doing. But everything was always adjusted for whatever the release was going to be. So there's some guys that are just catch and shoot. They can never move. They develop the muscle memory enough that if they catch and shoot in a certain spot, they put up like a really good number. But I don't know that it makes you a well-rounded shooter. And what we see with Clayton is that he can be that corner three that he hit from the left side, or excuse me, it was the right side. So right corner, he's adjusting all of his like arm and release point to get away from the contest. And then it's natural. He also had a drive on the left side where he had read it and he knew what was going to happen and he knew he was going to get fouled. So he's preparing himself to even throw the ball up at the rim. And it wasn't even an and one, but there's just stuff with him that even if he's not off the page, you know, or I should say off the charts athletically compared to some of the other guys, he seems to keep getting past everybody the entire time. And there's some players when you're doing the draft, you're like, I don't know if he's like the most dynamic or the most quick. And it's like, okay, but he just keeps getting past everybody every single time. And his pace and his comfort in the biggest moments, I haven't done it, but I guess I'd have a hard time believing that there's 30 guys that go ahead of him, even at the age.
I would add the way he finishes after he bounces into somebody in a drive and still finishes with touch. That's the thing that reminds me of Murray the most. Like when Murray's really going, he has this ability to kind of bounce off dudes and finish anyway. I think he's really impressive. And I was mad. I had the Auburn Duke parlay last night, which then I had to chase with Duke Clippers. So it was a double loss for me last night. But I just thought Auburn was better. And then as you're watching him take over the second half, you're like, why the fuck did I bet against this guy? This guy thinks he's the best guy in this tournament. I'm not doing that again. All right, we got to get
just to add to it though, because I've been doing it now where like on FanDuel, I hedged it with a Florida over Houston plus 750 title.
Yeah.
So I was like, I love Duke. I love them in this game. And then you're sitting there going, I still don't feel like I was wrong. There's plenty of games where you're like, I'm just wrong on this one. So yeah, I got a little title game insurance, so we'll see how it goes. But doubting Houston is a dangerous sport right now.
The most important question I'm going to ask you before we go to the break: do you think stripping the inbounds passer should be worth more than one technical?
No, I'm fine with it. You think it should be?
I think it should be a 2-tech. That it's just such a crazy thing to do. I just think it should be add an extra tech to it for how stupid it is. And then that guy came back and made some big plays. He wasn't phased at all.